Wide receivers, who are we starting?
Courtland Sutton is one of them. He's alternated good and bad stat lines for the last 4 weeks, but Baltimore's defense is really bad against wide receivers. They've allowed the most fantasy points per game to the perimeter, including 7 touchdowns. Overall, they've given up big time numbers, 13 plus points to 11 wide receivers, and 6 have gone over 20. So if you need help this week in a flex, Courtland Sutton is worth a look, and so is Xavier Worthy on Monday night against the Buccaneers. He hadn't been great, but he scored 11 plus points in 3 of his last 4 games, so as a flex starter, you could take that. The Buccaneers have allowed 7 touchdowns and the 3rd most points per game to wide receivers in the last 4 weeks. Overall, they're giving up 158 receiving yards per game to wideouts.
Sitting at wide receiver.
Zay Flowers is in DFS, I'm not going to play. If I have him in traditional, I probably got to play him, but I don't love the matchup against Patrick Surtain. The Broncos have allowed 4 touchdowns and the 4th fewest points per game to wide receivers. And listen to this, only one wide receiver has scored more than 14.2 points in a game against them, coming off of the perimeter this year. Amari Cooper against the Dolphins. His snap count increased a little bit last week, but he only had 2 targets against Seattle. Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir have been the better wide receivers. You could see Cooper being faced with Jalen Ramsey, and the Dolphins have given up 2 touchdowns and the 7th fewest fantasy points per game to perimeter receivers. So keep that in mind when you're starting Amari Cooper.